Hello everyone. Welcome to another dev stream.
Hello.
So today it's a little bit different. We're going to have a Q&A with some of our most dedicated players, and we thought we would stream this and share the conversation with everyone basically. Just quick introductions. My name's Rickdekard, I'm an executive producer.
And I'm Daze, creative director.
Cool. Without further ado, let's start the Q&A. Who would like to go first? Okay,
I'll raise your hand at once. No, I guess I can start. So one of the questions and one of the things I've been really trying to brainstorm.
Sorry?
Oh, certainly.
Could you introduce yourself first?
Safe and sound.
Hi, everyone. Player Human XY. One of the items I've been trying to crowd think is why Augmented feels unfulfilling as a kit currently. Is there anything sort of on the docket or things you guys have explored to give that kit some sort of active ability that makes it feel as rewarding as the other kits?
Well, that kit, we might not have it for much longer.
Yeah. So we have some pretty cool mid to long-term plans of where to go. I don't know how much we should talk about them already.
I don't think we hide stuff from the community. So.
We don't usually, yeah.
First things first, we're looking into a different type of onboarding, so changes to how new players pick the kit. At the moment, new players start with the augmented kit, and we're looking at changing the start of the game for new players. So the first thing they do after maybe deciding how they want to look is to show them the different kits and ask them to pick one out of the three main kits. And so augment feels like a poor man's dragonfly. See this in the chat. It's not wrong. So what we're thinking of doing is just showing the three main kits and focusing our balancing efforts there. Yeah. In the long term, there probably going to be bigger changes to do with putting more focus on kits and abilities together as a package, more in the direction of classes. We think that restrictions might be actually good for the game, help us to balance it and also have clearer roles. But this is all in experimental early stages.
Yeah. But it's something we're exploring, so hoping to get really elevated depth in squad, for example, where people have defined roles, which is something I think we don't see enough of in the game today.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you for those insights. Appreciate it a lot.
Cool. The next person, don't be shy and please introduce yourself.
Okay, so this is Vertically Obese.
Hey.
In my opinion right now, balance, whether it feels good or bad, is relatively better than it has been in terms of fighting.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
So I've heard rumor, but when can we expect more drastic changes in testing of the actual game mode itself?
Oh, okay. That's something we're actively working on. When you say the game mode yourself, you're probably talking about the match structure, the contracts, and how we orchestrate all of that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We see it as the biggest building site that we have right now.
So do I.
Yeah. So we think we made good progress on what we call the second-to-second part of the game, and so combat. And we took a big step with what we call internally the hour-to-hour part of the game, which is the station and the menus, although there's still work to be done in those menus. A minute-to-minute part, although we've made, I think, a pretty good step with the Mac train. There's so much more potential in that part of the game, and we didn't give it the priority. Thank you for the for raiding. Nice. We didn't give it the priority that we maybe should have, and that's mainly my bad. And it's a problem of resources, where we had to get many engineers helping out with the station, and we didn't make improvements in the match like we would as much as we would like to. We're exploring.
Yeah, so basically we're a pretty small team for the size and quality of game that we're trying to build. We're really a small team. So yeah, we already starting several months ago. We had our match team helping out to build ranked mode, for example. So it's always a tricky thing for us. Like, we know what we want, but what order do we build it in? So yeah, the match didn't improve as much as it probably should have for some time.
We're looking into 10v10 team mode right now, and it might end up being more of an event mode. We have to see how it goes, but there's a lot of discussion internally about, is putting focus on 10v10 the right thing to do? Maybe we should put more focus on the modes that we have and orchestrating the contracts better. And so at the moment we're trying to do both, but we're going to have to flip the switch soon and put a lot more focus just on that orchestration on the match. There's one thing we're doing internally just now, which is a little pet project of mine a little bit, and that's what we call Star Trek evac, so that you can better contest the evac and you can't just directional warp into a ship right away. We had a lot of fun playing that today, but we have to see if it's the right thing for the game or not. So maybe that's coming soon if it works out and we like it internally. Then
that might be one of the first of these match explorations that you guys get to play. It could be.
Yeah. Another thing that Daze has been working on with TC Rumble is something that Marie, what's your name in the game? Majorval. Something she gave a great presentation about last week at a team meeting. It's about having clear stages to the match, or match phases, having a proper gearing up phase, and then a kind of contest phase where we unlock or we activate the higher scoring but more kind of higher risk reward contracts like Uplink and Mac Train and Laser Drill, and having them start a bit later in the match, and then having a kind of catch up phase perhaps with the cycle spike, so putting that later, and then having the kind of final contest phase with evac. And we've taken some steps yesterday with Daze and TC Rumble, and those not massive steps, but they're still important ones, and they will go live next week on Thursday, hopefully.
Safe and sound. Nice to have you with us.
So, but there's a lot more to be done, and Vert, we've read what you've posted, and we've had many discussions and proposals from different team members over the last few weeks, which is also pointing in the direction of a better orchestration and structure to the match.
Yeah, so just to let you guys know where we're at. Like I said, we didn't really work on the match a lot the last months, but we're right now kind of planning out all the things we want to do for the coming months and the next season. And we are focusing a lot on the match, and that's exactly the stage we're in right now, figuring out what those changes should be. And I think one of the big initiatives we have identified is clearer phases.
Marie, Major Val, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so right now when you play the game, and especially as a new user, there's a lot of things happening at once, and there's a lot of overwhelming impression, things that you can do at a given time, and it's hard to know the right thing to do. What players do generally is that go for the mineral, and they become, you have a very exploratory behavior where they just kind of take the thing that's next to them. And what I want to do is to make sure that you're not behind off the bat if you didn't know that you're supposed to run to an epic mineral or a power station the first thing you do. I want to layer these different difficulties or these added complexity. I want to layer it in a little bit slower and slower as you go, and also increase congestion to be a little bit higher the further you go into the game, so that there's a more like a the intensity pacing is a more, it's not just on 100% by default. It actually builds up to some more anticipation, and also that players can easily follow when things are being added one by one, and hopefully they'll get a fighting chance. And I think every match that a new player is playing, they should be able to get further. And this will help some of the feelings that I and many other had like the first time we played, which is like, I'm being dropped in this big sandbox and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm already behind whatever I do, it seems like. So we're looking at every front and how we can structure things a little bit, but also to make them clear and explain them a little bit better. And I think this would also help all levels of the game.
I'd love to also just highlight an experiment we did 4 or 5 weeks ago internally, where we changed the game loop. It's quite a big change, but it's actually very similar to the original prototype of the game, which was called Prospect. And in that experiment, your VP, you had to bank it or extract it during the match to kind of save it. Because if you got killed in PvP, the person who took you down would take your points. I know it sounds quite extreme, but we are looking in general at how we can increase the stakes, and also if we can increase the stakes and provide a better catch-up mechanics to the game, then that would be lovely.
That's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question, Vert?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Hi, Bloodless Roshi here. In this topic of match progression and catch up and everything you talked about, has been there any thoughts on extending the match duration to maybe 5 or 10 minutes?
Nice
I
to
think
have you with us.
by extending the match, the catch up windows players have are a bit wider, which can be good. And right now, in the state of the game, there is a big part of the match is spent on contesting these objectives and fighting another players on PvP, which can lead to harming or hindering your BP gains. And maybe testing a bit longer match can help on this. And as you said, making some objectives start later instead of having laser drill starting at 15 minutes or 10 minutes, so it starts later, making the match longer and remain the same moment when they start can be a good way to do it. I would like to hear what thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think, like I said, we are looking into delaying some of those big contracts. I think we haven't really talked about the match time, but maybe that's a mistake. Maybe that's something we should, like we always try to question even the things that might seem obvious in the game, and for some reason we haven't really talked about match time, but maybe we should.
Yeah.
I think if we slow down the early game, we might want to add a couple of minutes at the end, but let's make the other changes first and then see how it plays.
I agree with that. Once we get these phases more clear, it might then lead to us realizing that the match actually needs to be longer to support that. So I think that might be the way to go.
Yeah. I think right now, if we did it with the game as it is, the people who are ahead would just be further ahead, but I agree with...
That's the risk, yeah.
That's the risk. But I agree that we should do the changes we planned first and then decide. I want to just quickly respond to the chat. So, Dead Moose, Leet Speak Dead Moose. I like the idea of Prospect, but would it extremely incentivize PvP? So this is referring to what I talked about earlier about the old prototype that we made. I think it would be very important to have skill-based matchmaking, which is something I hope will go out next week on Thursday. And when we played it internally, we also played it with some other changes where you only had one life, and so more BR-like, and your your health didn't regen unless you went to a plant or something. So you need also things in the gear store that you could purchase, like health packs. And because the stakes are so high, it caused us to be really wary of PvP as well, because you might not win that encounter if it's equally matched. So actually, it changed the game radically in terms of how tense it was. So I think it's not necessarily incentivizing PvP. It definitely would without skill-based matchmaking, and if you don't have much to lose yourself.
So I mean, what I think would be great is if the incentive to actively attack someone or PvP someone would actually be, would be more variable. So right now you get 5 score, but I think what experiments like that do is that sometimes someone actually doesn't have anything you want, and then there's no reason at all to PvP. So I think there's some balance there that we can strike, and we can be slightly more dynamic and interesting than we are today without going, on across the board incentivizing PvP, because I think that would be thin ice.
Just one more question from the chat. How would you go about skill-based matchmaking? So the way we've gone about it is to work closely with Amazon. So Amazon have a very cool thing called GameLift, and we're not actually using GameLift. We're making our own infrastructure within Amazon, but not using GameLift. But we're using a new product from Amazon called Flex Match, and the great thing about it is that we get all the experience that we get gained from all the experience from Amazon that they've gained over the last few years with GameLift to help us balance it, to help us balance our skill-based matchmaking. And we get incredibly powerful tools where we can simulate lots of players of different skills over many matches to find out what would happen if we change this variable, that variable, and we're able to change those variables in real time without a downtime through the tools from Amazon. So it might not be perfect when it goes out, but the tools are really good, so we're going to be able to tune it very quickly, and Mayorval is going to be leading that tuning. I'd like to go back now to a question from our basically super skilled players.
All right, it's my turn now. It's Menorca here. So I would like to know what are the current thoughts on maybe proximity in the future, at least for suits, because the past three patches the boxer has been king, and I assume diversity is the objective. So how are the devs actually picturing everything that has been going around the boxer, since it has been mobile? Before it was mobile vertically and horizontally, and now it's mobile vertically, and people still prefer to use it due to the huge amount of HP advantage and all the perks it has with it. So I would like to know what's the current overview on that.
So for me, like we talked a bit about, what we imagine mid to long term is turning them into something more similar to classes. So that basically, the current system is very difficult to balance because we allow you guys to mix and match everything. So we easily, no matter how well we balance and tune, not saying that we have tuned it perfectly, but it is going to be very difficult. But if we would give them more defined roles that would even complement each other, so that, for example, in squad, you might always want to have one boxer, but a boxer without a support, I don't know, that's gonna be a disadvantage. So for me, that's the way forward. Does that make sense, Minorca?
Yeah, it was more in the sense of like the suits not being as diverse as we would want to, depending on the mode. In squads, it's more boxer than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's on duos and solos, there's a bit more diversity, but in squads, it's just not a good option. If you're in the lobby with players that already know the game, know what's up with the weapons and all that stuff, usually quick suit and the jetpack suits aren't really a choice, depending.
Yeah, and I mean they should be. That's for sure the goal. And like I said, I think if we turn them into something more like classes, I think we'll have an easier time to get there. Like that, it's not just movement and health tuning that you get when you choose a kit or a class. There's more to it. So that way, I think we can get complementary kits. We can get more diverse range, and also kits that better reflect maybe other games, the kind of like the way that heroes can do in some of the bigger shooters.
Honestly, I think that right now with the changes to the suit perks, that diversity has been kind of removed because the level 1, 2, 5, and 6 perks are the same for every suit. So you only have 2 perks that are unique to each suit, which leads more towards the HP and speed and mobility of the suit having more weight than the suit itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree or disagree with what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So, but basically, then what we want to do is we want to diversify them more by having more things to play with per kit than just the level up perks, health and shield and movement.
I think what they want to know is what's the short-term plan? Like, is there something coming patch 16.2 that's gonna balance out the kits a little bit better?
I mean, actually, right now there's not, but there's a lot of. Does mean it won't change, and since we're pretty agile, it could change by Monday. Yeah. So, I can just give you my personal feeling on it. So, I think the Dragonfly is a little sad, and because I feel like I run out of fuel all the time, and somebody wrote internally that this morning in the playtest. So we play the game every day, by the way. So. That it feels they have a leak in their gas tank, you know. I think it might just be the regeneration rate needs to be a bit better for the Dragonfly, so you can actually use it more. I understand why it was made the way it is now, but I think it doesn't play out like that in matches. What we were trying to do with the kits was just reduce the crazy high mobility, because I know that a lot of people got used to it and they really liked the game for it, but it was really causing us problems in attracting new users, and I'm all for us tuning the kits and changing it so that they're all viable. I'm super wary of escalating the mobility of kits to the point where we end up where we were. So yeah.
But short term, we can definitely, it'll be more, addressing things like that. The jetpack feeling underwhelming, for example.
Yeah, that's audio glitch. I mean, yeah, it's he's totally behind buffing the Dragonfly. So yeah. But that's just something that's been discussed a lot internally. I think I think what we need to always do is we always have the theory or our hypothesis of how something's going to play out, and we then make changes, and we design things and make changes to the game. And then once it goes out and people like you guys start playing it, then we see what actually happens. And what's important is that we react to that pretty quickly. So yeah. I think there might be a change for 16 too. I'm not sure if that answers your question, though. But
yeah, that sounds good. Hopefully, we get to see some suit changes, and as classes, it might be interesting. So I'm hopeful to see what comes up.
I think it will be.
So to take one from the chat, Void Gift, when will the poor weapon balancing be addressed? Like we're constantly trying to improve it. I've got in front of me right now, but you can't see. I've got something called Tableau, which is a tool that shows us a whole bunch of statistics, and it shows who uses what weapon and by what ratio and stuff. And right now, there's definitely some weapons that are used a lot, and we right now I'm selecting in this weapon overview to only look at players that have more than 500 matches, and I can tell you what the usage is.
Yeah.
And then and you can see like this is one of the ways that we balance everything is just to look at the data and see how things are being used, and we can look not just at the data of everyone, but we can look at the data for people who have played 500 plus matches.
Or the ones who win, or
and we can
anything.
change. Yep, that's right here in front of me. It's also I can change the victory points amount, so I can only look at players that get really high victory points. I can look at players that only make a lot of player kills, and I can use all of these different variables together to build a profile of a user, and then see, what's too good, basically. And the date we have today is the 15th, and so what we have right now is no one is using a basilisk, and no one is using a maelstrom. And when I say no one, I mean people are using it, but no one who's played the game a lot are using them. They're at 1%. So those have already been buffed for 16.2. A lot of people are using, since the nerf to the Phasic Lancer, they're using the bolt action. I'm talking about 500 weapons because I think they're the ones that really matter at the end for the balancing of the game. So, and the next most popular weapon is the Kinetic Arbiter, but that's miles under the bolt action. So, we have some things to do. In 800 weapons, it's 73% the detonator, so we definitely have work to do there to make that more even. And for 200 weapons, the PDW is at 60% usage. So the buff to the Flechette has not yet presented itself. Nobody uses the Gorgon. So there's definitely work to be done. A lot of people are using the K28, which surprises me because I think the hammer for PvP and the Scarab for PvE are way better.
Scarab.
But anyway, in 16.2, there's going to be another update like there was in 16.1. We take a way more data-driven approach to balancing now, and we are very much in spreadsheet land.
Yep.
And we weren't before. We were using a spreadsheet, but we weren't using it as much. So I think we're doing this. So there's going to be bigger changes for there was bigger changes for 16.1. There's bigger changes for 16 for sure, and 16.2 as well. But we're honing in slowly because we're trying to get a more even distribution of usage by our best players. So let's go back. Sorry.
I want to add one thing here. Like another thing that I'm planning to do with the combat team going forward is to look at the identity of the weapons and how they sit in relation to each other, to make sure that every weapon kind of has its, at minimum, its kind of time to shine and its situation where it's useful. But also that the experience of using the whole weapon kind of goes together with, what the fantasy is and when it's supposed to be used, so that they get a little bit of stronger identity and hopefully they get more enjoyable to play around with them as well.
Cool.
Do we have another question, perhaps?
Yeah.
more of a comment. Thank you for putting healing plants on both maps now.
Yeah.
And more diversely spread, just not the swamp.
I'm glad you noticed.
I was watching the PCL at like, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning, the last PCL competition. And I don't know if it was Mavin or Menorca, but somebody used the healing plant to win in a fight, and it was called out by the caster, and I thought that was really cool. I don't know if you guys remember who that was, but it was a really cool moment.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, I thought it was. I loved it.
I have a question then to the players here. Having played with it for a little bit, how do you guys feel about the pain train?
I don't like it. I feel like it throws way too much chaos and imbalance in the spawns early game. And I don't feel like it could be balanced the early game portion to make it worthwhile to risk running all the way there just to lose the engagement. I feel like it'd be a better fit for like a cycle spike alternative rather than the major objective.
How long until it spawns? Is it 5 minutes it spawns?
7
it's
minutes.
the same as drill.
It's 5 or 7
No,
minutes.
it's much later than drill.
It's much later than drill, so I think it's 7 minutes.
Yeah, probably 7.
I think the spawn, in 7 minutes, you've got time to unlock your loadout. When I mean unlock your loadout to, get 200 in an ability,
Get
or
ready
probably
for
get your
PvP.
500. Get ready for PvP to contest. So we did actually have it starting way earlier in the match, and we moved it to 7 minutes so that spawns don't matter so much. Personally, I would really like that you could select your spawn, a bit like in Rings of Elysium, that you can kind of select from a small cell, from a grid. We tried it internally. We might come back to it, I don't know, but it takes away that whole problem, and I think a bit more agency of where you start would be a way to just get rid of all of these issues.
One more thing that I want to add on that topic is that we're looking into making the period in the pre-game lobby before you really land on the planet a little bit more tactical, so that you can talk to your teammates. Maybe you can say, hey, I'm this class, you're this class. We're even planning to put a loadout locker in the pre-game lobby, so you can adjust your loadout after you know which contracts will be in the game. And the kind of info about spawn points or placement on contracts is something that we might also add to that stage, in which will give you guys more chances to have a tactic around it.
Yeah, what we do currently in the drop pod sequence, which is laying out our first and second moves, that's something we want you guys to be able to do already in the lobby.
That's awesome. But to go back to the mag train, one of the feedbacks I have is particular for map 2. The 2 trains unloading is far closer than it really feels like it should be. You're able to engage between the 2 trains and go back and forth between them and have sort of a slaughter in the river. While on map 1, that just isn't as possible with the mag train.
I mean, that slaughter in the middle is intentional, and
oh yeah, it's fun. It feels like there's such a difference between the way the mag train plays out, especially during unloading, between map 1 and map 2.
I mean, that's always a balance, I think, with level design, to have the maps should be different from each other, because otherwise we would only build, the best map. But how different should they be? Maybe they're too different in this case, or they offer variety. That's basically the scale that lies on.
So we're working on a third map, and it's just very experimental. So a couple of people working on it, and one of the ideas there were the trains actually cross during their journeys. And but yeah, anyway, I think to go back to, I think it was Vert that was talking about the mag train. I think the problem you're talking about with spawns is way broader than the mag train. And
yeah, it is. It's just an addition to that.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, I would really like to give you the choice of where you land, and I think that would solve a lot of it. The kind of issues that we have with that is because the way recall works and stuff, that everyone would select the middle of the map, or that's at least been an argument against it. Everyone select the middle of the map to land there, so that when they respawn, they can just quickly jump in. But I'm a fan of the game just only having one life and nothing more, so then respawn doesn't matter. But that's very different from the game we have now.
On what Player Human was talking about, I think it was him, about the proximity of the two unload areas, it allows for one team to snowball. If you clear the first train and push the second one, there won't be anyone back to that train to test it, except for the players on the other train. And if you win that engagement, you get both trains, and the match is yours, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we also, to be honest, we wanted to make sure that the pain train was played a lot in its introduction, so we made it very lucrative. It's maybe too lucrative.
Yeah, and we also wanted that it's possible to take both trains, but we wanted that to be like a really extreme feat. Maybe it could be that in one map it's slightly too easy, because we wanted that to be like,
It sounds like it.
You totally outsmarted everyone and you totally crushed them in PvP. Oh my god, in this match you managed to get both trains, but that should really be an outlier.
So I wanna clarify or maybe fill in a little bit the pain train scoring. Right now, if you hold the two pain trains, they should give the same score together as if you would hold an uplink during the whole duration of uplinks. If you would hold all of them. So they should be equivalent.
Any more questions from the group?
If to what Major Wall said, like if the paint mag train would like holding both together would score the same as uplink, two things will happen. Either you have to increase the BP from uplink, which will make it extremely overpowered, or you will have to or mag train will be basically a contract that no one would do, because the amount of PvP you get from it, and uplink right now gives around 270 pp for the full duration. So not many players will take that massive risk for 270 pp when you can get them from other sources with way less risk. And I think one of the issues with the mag train, as Bert said, with the spawns, is related to the recall battery itself. Uh, when you spawn next to train, it means that if you take that fight after the train has traveled for a bit, you're gonna spawn far away from the train, but the team that is contesting it is gonna spawn next to it, so they can go back, pick up their batteries, and fight you again and again, and you will have to take the same fight maybe 3 or 4 times. And this is it's a bit unfair, and I want to ask if there are any plans on tweaking the recall batteries in a way that are not just free lives over and over.
I don't think we have any super concrete plans, but we've identified the same issue, and we do have some experiments in the pipeline, because we basically, I think previously in the game, when we just had 2 lives, we were a bit arbitrarily punishing, perhaps is the right term. So I think for me, like if we were on the scale from like punishing to giving you a chance, I think we made the game better. But I think we should take a little step back toward that, and that could be done in many ways. It could be that you, and we have experiments that we're going to try out internally. It could be that you have a time limit to pick it up. It could be that the opposite, that there's a time where it's locked, and after that you can pick it up, or people can destroy it. So I'm not sure what we will do, but we're looking into ways of making it a little bit less of a safe, ensured respawn.
Yeah, I think there's also some other really obvious things we can do with it. Like Apex style. Let your teammate pick it up and take it to somewhere, to some location where you get respawned. So make it more social. So basically an internal discussion here is very much of what type of game are we making and how high do we want the stakes to be. and in a very high stakes version of the game, you probably wouldn't have a recall. You probably wouldn't have a recall battery, and when you're dead. So I think we're trying to figure that out internally. It felt like a good thing to do for the public, to make the game a bit more forgiving, as there is quite a lot to learn with the game, and you're trying to understand the game, and at the same time, people are shooting at you. But if we stay with it for the long term, is really open to, the larger direction questions, I think, for the game.
Also, Feralus, we're in dire need of a tea opener.
A tea opener?
Yeah.
The Bavarian tea opener?
A Bavarian tea opener. And I hope we also answered...
Give it here.
Oh, okay.
Jesus, he hasn't lived in Germany long enough.
10 years.
My word.
I guess
I've
it's
been here
my inability to learn is what...
Yeah, I've been here for 12 years.
Oh, that's good.
Those
okay.
2 years...
Feralus, disaster averted, we don't need a Bavarian tea opener.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? I hope we answered that one. I forgot what we were even answering because we rambled so much.
I just know that Rickdekard is a very, very skilled tea opener.
Yeah, so I've learned now.
Very skilled. My first experience of Germany was at Carnival in Cologne, and they train you pretty well.
Here's a good question. Will the dev update videos ever return?
I want to do it in a different format. I like how Warframe do it, where it's a bunch of devs having a conversation, and it's more focused on the community. So it's more like there's questions that are collected from the community, and we talk about them, and then we also talk about what we plan for the future of the game. And I would love it if we were arguing and debating about the game in front of all of you.
Yeah, but with you as well.
With you as well. I think that would be really cool. So I would like to do that version. I think you've seen enough of me standing there awkwardly trying my best.
I can't get enough of it personally, but
I've probably had enough of it.
do we have any more questions?
I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of anything else we talked about.
I do. It's about the new spawns for the white crystal. It's more of a concern because they are currently giving... Some spawns are currently giving one spawn a huge advantage towards other spawns. Yeah.
So I think that it's not a good idea that they spawn at the start of the match, but there might be technical limitations for why they do at the moment. But having them spawn at the match start, I think, is something we desperately need to change. Because I noticed it internally as well today when we had our squad match. We all rushed the crap out of that epic mineral.
Yeah. I mean, our plan with them was always that they would be so hard to do,
but then just
that you wouldn't do them at the start of match. But we run into this issue that that's the trickiest thing with PvE. People will always find a way to game it because PvE is predictable, or it gets predictable after some time.
I think I think minerals are boring and could be way more fun by making it feel more like a horde mode, where you have a much higher chance that the monsters will actually destroy the mineral, and it's more of a PvE challenge. I understand why they've been made the way they are, because of third party and by players, and it would be frustrating perhaps that you do a lot of a mineral and then a player comes along and you have an engagement with that player, and then the mineral gets destroyed by the monsters, but then you both don't get it. At least it's contestable, and I feel like all those waves spawning should spawn much faster, those waves, and a drill should have less health. And then if you go and rush it early game with pistols, good luck. That's how I feel it should be.
I can fill in here as well. The next experiment that we want to do internally is to see if it won't start in the first minute of the game, but only after players have completed a certain quota or tiers of minerals. Only then will the actual spawn.
That's
and
cool.
There'll be a few of them, not enough for every squad. Let's say the 5 squad, it is 3 minerals, and they spawn somewhat semi-centrally, so that people have a chance to rotate to them as well.
Yeah. So short answer, we agree with the problem, and we have multiple different ways that we want to try to tackle it.
Yeah. I think my issues with minerals in general. Thoughts on?
Are there
Sorry, I just
any
wanted.
thoughts?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Are there any thoughts on do some rework or tweaks to the salvage drones contracts? Right now, salvaging drones itself is just like a task towards the carriers, and it feels like a contract that is there just for that. It doesn't really reward BP. It does nothing else except launching the carrier, which is the objective, and it's mainly done in the early stages of the game to get credits, and after that is a forgotten contract that most teams ignore because of the time it takes, the risk, and the reward is just credits.
Yep, so totally. I think we've identified the same, and we have some ideas now coming up, which would be, I would like us if we actually merged the salvage and the drone carrier part of the contracts. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but it could be that we really make it on the HUD that you put the drones in there, but the actual quest or contract is the launching. And that we would also, in the spirit of stronger match phases, that we would delay that a bit. So there would be a timer. It would show you that in 2 minutes the drones are gonna spawn, and then it's all about the drone launch, but not so early in the match that people are running around with pistols. But we actually get the sabotage dynamics in. That was kind of the point from the beginning that we kind of just skip because it's all over with during the pistol phase. So absolutely.
So something that makes me really angry when I play the game is that I got 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 of these little drones into the carrier, and if it was changed that one of them can be destroyed, but you still as long as you get everything else apart from the one that was destroyed in, that it would take off, that would make me pretty happy, because I think you need to be punished if you're really rubbish, or if you just had a lot of PvP around it, then you both get punished. But I feel like I'm punished too often for something I can't really control because of just how it's laid out. Sometimes that monsters spawn quite far away from where I am, and they just one of those shotgun monsters. What are they called? Nobody knows.
Ravager, yeah.
Ravagers. That they destroy one of them, and I'm like, oh man, that's like 3 minutes. Seriously, I'm not coming back 3 minutes later. So I think if you made it really easy, change would be to change that to have an extra drone, and that it's 4 minutes, even bloody worse.
Or maybe even that, again, it's the same contract, and the drone health that you put in the carrier is the score that you get when you launch, and the launching period will be relative to the amount of score in it. So so you always get to launch it.
I don't want players doing math.
No, it's still the same. Put drones in, launch it. Boom.
Okay, that's good.
And so all it is similar, but it's one quest, and you always launch it. You never fail, and then you can't launch it.
That sounds way better.
So I think that would be one way to go about it.
Just a thought I had just there. Doing it maybe a bit more like the shrooms, where you gather them and deliver. So you could gather 3 or 8 drones through the map and deliver them in a carrier, and depending the amount of drones you deliver in the carrier, the more waves it can spawn, making it a more risk reward. Like a player could take you down and steal your
Yeah.
drones.
Who's talking right now?
Reshi.
That's so much more fun than what we have.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
that's
that.
exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm pitching as well.
that would be awesome.
That's we are saying the same thing. So we should
Okay.
just do that.
I would love to go to some area on the map with my drones and have to put them in a carrier and expect that there's going to be, people there waiting for me. I think we don't, and I mean, delivery quests are sometimes the least favored quests, but I think in our game we just don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
So that sounds great. Thanks.
And just so you know, like I said, we're in the process of planning out our next phase, as we call it, and this is very concretely one of the items in it to do exactly what you described. Describe what a phase is. Yeah, sure. So basically, we plan in a way where we try to be very agile because things happen quickly, they change, games come out, you guys give us feedback and whatnot, but we need to try to, we try to plan with some level of foresight. Midterm, exactly. So we think that kind of the distance that we can see accurately into the future is roughly 3 months. So every 3 months we kind of take a step back, we just shift a season, for example, like now, and we look at the game and say, what's the smartest things for us to focus on for the next 3 months? And that's what phase planning is all about.
Yep. So we're trying to make phase planning and seasons the same length. Yep. We're working on it. Yeah. Make personal quests drop from players too. Green eggs. Oh yes.
That's a good idea.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Make them visible. Jonathan or Rickdekard is carrying a green egg. I want that green egg.
Yeah, I think that's way more fun.
Slam dunk.
Totally. Yeah. I just woke up. I seem to have missed everything.
Hi, Solarius.
Solarius, really? But now you're awake, so at least you're here.
Don't everyone adjust their life schedule to our streams?
Yeah, the drones are great to get 400 credits. I mean, that's honestly, I think that's a lot what they're there for. And I look at minerals the same way. They're there to earn credits. But yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit to that question about the white crystals and more on that. I remember talking I remember talking about this with Rumble and Alfie a while back. What are the plans for spawn balancing? Because it happens in almost every match in which the spawn you get is almost the most important factor. So you get, I don't know, this amount of power-ups close to you. You get uplink, you get drill, you don't get drill, and that really dictates how the match is going to go for you. So what are the plans on balancing that out?
I mean, in the last phase and the phase before it, so now over 9 months. For 9 months, we've been discussing that we give players choice over that, so that they can decide if they want to take a lot of risk, if they want to spawn near something of high value, knowing that other players will probably spawn there too. I don't see us really being able to solve that very well without giving players choice.
And short term, though, I think the match phases is also part of it, that we want to, those high tier things, delaying them a bit and making them really obvious where they will happen will help short term at least.
It might be that's all we need to do.
Could be.
And then we don't need to do the other thing, but I think we keep on coming back to spawns again and again on this project, and it's something that we need to decide if we give you, what we call agency over it, which is basically choice over it or not.
Yep.
Please add descriptions and abilities in the shop. I hear you.
It's coming.
Kit mods as well, man. What do they even do? I don't know.
It's coming. We worked a lot on redoing the UI to match our new art style for it, and we didn't manage to finish all of the UX part or the user flows for it, but we're on it. It's gonna be updated soon.
Yeah, Dead Moose is saying you don't need a good spawn to get a good score. I remember Rumble saying you need to look at it like poker. What you do with the cards you're dealt shows your skill. And I think that's fine in a normal match. I think in a ranked match, especially once we have skill-based matchmaking and you're dealing with a bunch of players at the same skill level, that's probably not going to work
Yeah.
out. It's going to be too frustrating for people with a bad spawn.
Unless the match phases is enough, but we have to do that first and then see. And it
Oh yeah, I'm
could be
talking
that
about a
we-
game as it is now.
Yeah, yeah,
but I agree,
totally,
it might be enough.
totally.
But again, with the point that was made earlier, I think by Vert as well, is that when you recall, that also plays, if you,
It's all connected in our
Yeah.
weird mess of a game.
I think that's the problem, if your spawn is advantageous for when you get killed and you respawn and you're near a train or an uplink, you're gonna be happy. If the opposite is the case, you're gonna blame the game, and you shouldn't be blaming the game. You should be blaming yourself.
Yeah.
Is how I feel about the whole topic anyway. Any more questions?
Safe and sound. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for arriving at Prospect Station.
So you're talking about 10v10 mode. Is there a chance we'll be trying other team sizes?
Safe and
Like, for
sound.
instance, the 3
Nice to have you with us.
squads being teams of 3 and 4 instead of 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there were discussions about having only
Safe
solo.
and sound. Nice to have you
Only
with us.
solo and a trio squad where you can make the option not to autofill, so you could go there as 2 people,
Safe
and
sound.
then have team.
Nice to have you with us.
I'm personally really unsure about that. I think team has to be really good. It has to be super well received by the community for us to make those changes. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get team as good as we can. We're going to put it out as an event, and we're going to see what the feedback is, and I think then we're just going to take it from there. And it might be that it's really good, and then we can take the risk with those other changes, and it might not be. So, but I feel like we have to be careful on that one.
So we have a couple of questions in chat. Will we ever make Snare Trap useful again? Yes.
I mean, it needs to be PvP as well.
It needs to be PvP.
uh,
Like, we know that. We're getting to it.
By the way, I feel people don't use the scanner nearly enough. I was talking to Major Val about that, and I use it a lot. I use it all the time. You probably saw in the last stream. Not that I'm epically good at shooting, but I played the game for a long time and a lot, and I know that the scanner is just free money, and Major Val was saying that we show you in the tutorial and then we don't tell you again about it and people forget about it, and I think we should remind players to use the scanner. I think it's so useful.
Mm.
So it's so useful for looking if other players are nearby. It's just incredibly useful.
Yeah, we're looking right now a lot into like where do we put information on the screen? Like, is it in the scanner? Is it on the heads-up display up to the left of the contract? Is it a voice line? Is it shown in the tutorial? Is it shown like when you're looking at the map tab? And we will overhaul this as we go to make sure that it's a little bit more clear, and also those things that you do forget, something that we catch up. But it's also possible to make the scanner something that's specific to a certain class as well, if we want to go that route. So expect some changes to where information lies, at least in the future.
Yeah, I would be careful to put information, because information is so powerful in our game to a particular class. But yeah, I agree with everything else. I think that one is a really tricky one.
So it's a tricky balance, because I think information is one of the strongest class dynamics in other games, but we always need to keep solo in mind as well, in a way that it's a slippery slope, but maybe an interesting one to nudge into a bit. Dead Moose is wondering a lot about the recall teleporter, and yes, I think we could buff it a bit to just answer your question, because people used to use it a lot. I think I haven't seen it used a lot.
Did we fix the bug with it? I believe we did.
Yes, there were also bugs with it that we fixed.
I think it goes out in 16.2 though, which is next week.
And there's also another question which I understood. Nice to see your friends or squad in lobby. If you mean station, that you end up in the same prospect station as your friends and squad, then yes, we're looking into that as well.
Buddy Crack says, I see Rumble's not here because he's fixing the game. You're
Yeah.
damn right he is.
Yeah, we finally told Rumble to fix the game here as well. So that's what he's doing.
One question about something like I talked with Rumble a while ago, and also a bit related to the Snare Trap. Are there more abilities in the works in the near future? Because I know a lot of people in the community gets really hyped about new weapons, but I think like abilities could add more depth to the game because of their interactions with themselves and the weapons and how they
Yeah.
work in the different game modes.
Major Val was saying the same thing. Was it today or yesterday? Yesterday in a meeting about it, when we were talking about adding new weapons for season 4, which we're going to do. We're going to add some new weapons, not just starter weapons. We need to before. So I think she had a really good point, and we really should do that. As we're looking into classes, as part of that, we'll have to consider new abilities too. There's something I think we really need to do before we do that, and I hope we can do it for a release really soon, maybe release 17. We need to balance our abilities because some of them are trash and don't get used by anybody, and others are must use. And in the same way that we tried our best to get weapons in a better place, I think we need to do the same with abilities. And then, once that's good, or I don't mean perfect, because I don't think we'll ever hit that.
Okay.
I don't think we'll hit that with weapons either. But then we can go and make new ones.
Well, I think that was kind of my point. I think like at the same time, adding more abilities allows players to create more combinations, for sort of saying,
Yeah.
where some abilities that are actually bad right now may be good. For example, if you think about the orbital bombardment abilities, they aren't really good, but because they are easy to dodge. If you had the snare trap, now you can secure that hit on your enemy. Also, right now, for example, health boost is really strong because it interacts directly to the with the base HP region of the player. So it creates basically 5 seconds where you are regenerating a lot of HP. Same goes with directional warp. The slower, more limited movement speed, movement the players have, make directional warp almost a must-have.
Yeah. No, we see that internally, and we saw that on the PCL recently as well. But internally, we see it pretty much every day that those two abilities are really heavily used, and yeah, we need to go through all the abilities and make sure that there's more viable setups than what we currently have on live. I love the idea of what you're mentioning about the snare trap. It used to be used like that. It needs to be brought back to work for PvP too.
I mean, the goal is their combinatory usage, and that goes both within you and your setup, but also with you mixing with other players. That's where we want to get.
I want to fill in a little bit here. Yeah, when you have different classes and different specialties, and also the experiment with bringing player numbers down to 3, we're hoping that it's easy to keep up with your teammate, and that your positioning and your ability usage becomes more important, and you can have these kind of synergies in combat, and you can plan out your encounters a little bit more tactically.
Yeah. Jingle Bun says they're heavily used because the other mechanics currently in game prevent anything else from being viable. I don't disagree. I think that the other abilities that you mentioned that are not viable, they're also not viable because how they're balanced. I understand that what you're saying basically is that movement has been so nerfed that you have to use the D-Warp, and I think D-Warp is incredibly good. It always was really, really viable anyway. And I hear you, Rocket Jump. Yeah, working on it. So I think there's two ways to approach it. It's not just about nerfing. We don't have to nerf everything into the ground, but we need to to at least look at a dewarp if it's maybe too good. But we have to bring a bunch of other stuff up and look how you could combine it. Like I think that was Minorca was mentioning. Was that you, Minorca?
Sorry, what?
I don't know who was bringing
The ability.
the combining the snare trap with the bombard.
No, it was Reshi.
Reshi, sorry, Reshi. I need to talk to you more often in Discord, then I know how you sound.
Russia again. One thing I at least never seen talk about as an option is just as like the weapons, creating different price ranges for the abilities. Because as you stated, there are abilities that are clearly stronger not only because of their stats but also because of their use or versatility in the match and what they offer. So I think maybe creating different price ranges for the abilities, maybe 100, 200, and 300 credits instead of everything on 150, could create an easier balance path where, yeah, this is really strong, but it costs more money, so you have to decide if you really want to buy it.
I'm not really a fan of that because I think what will happen is that people will buy it anyway.
Safe and sound.
And
Nice to have you with us.
I would rather we balance everything to be viable at the same price. I think it gets even harder when we start to put another variable in the mix. I understand why you're saying it, but I think in the current balancing, if we just change dewarp to 300, I think everyone who's competitive would still buy it anyway.
Yes, probably. My thought was, I come from playing League of Legends, right? So I see the abilities as the summoner spells, where every spell is useful, but they have different cooldowns. Where I relate the directional warp a lot with Flash, and it has a 5 minute cooldown on League of Legends compared to Heal, which has 240 seconds. So basically, making it more of a something you have to actually decide to go for, and when you use it, and in this case, when you buy it, like, do you want to buy it early or wait for your 500 and then get your D warp? Things like that.
I think it's totally one way to do it, and I'm not sure if League is the right direction for a game like ours. Mavin is saying it's not possible to balance everything at the same price point. It is. I mean, it's really difficult. It's always a challenge to balance stuff. There'll always be something that's better, and it'll be an effort to look at it in the next patch and see if it's OP or not. But all of that stuff is in our hands. You know, it's up to us as developers, and I think it is doable to have everything at a price point that's
And I mean,
all
I think
viable.
cooldown then, that is, however, a good example of, one of the main tuning variables there,
Yeah.
where we could go more extreme, and that's something we are talking about. Like, we could make some abilities, movement and abilities more impactful and feel more badass.
Yeah.
But then they could have really, really, really high cooldown times, and that's not something we're perhaps toying enough with right now. So in the end, you're talking about limiting usage, right? That's what it is about. And I think we could go stronger in that direction for sure.
Yeah. And Marvin, I think we're going to keep on patching again over and over and over stuff anyway in early access to try to find the balance, and that could also, your statement's also true if we start making different things at different price points.
Yeah. But limiting usage, I think, is the right way to look at it.
And the effectiveness, it's both, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. But it's effectiveness against usage.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be the price. That's what I'm saying. It's also cooldown. So I think we could definitely have crazy abilities with really, really high cooldowns.
Yeah. We're also looking at climbing as well, like ledge climbing and just generally climbing up rocks when they're not too steep, so that you're more mobile without having to use dewarp. It will take a little bit longer to get up that cliff face, but it shouldn't take too much longer. So right now, I know it's quite frustrating that you try to jump over a canyon. You used to be able to make the jump with fast punch, for example, and now you can't make it. And that needs to be more forgiving. And I think the way for us to do that is to do what a lot of other games do, and is to have that ledge climbing in.
I want to add something here, and that's like we have heard you guys. There's been a lot of voices in the community over the last few weeks saying that, you know, I feel slow, I don't feel agile, I feel overweight, and we do hear your concerns, and we want to use things like that, ledge climbing, and maybe work on our animation transitions, maybe work on our cameras and our effects a little bit to make sure that you guys feel better when you're traversing around the map.
There's a couple here. Catapult feels horrible right now. It's only good at level 4 because regen's too slow. I think the Dragonfly in general could do with faster regen, and Catapult would benefit from that. Stop people using abilities when down. I'm really dislike that people can use abilities when they're down. It feels really nasty when you bet somebody. And then they throw a grenade at you. It feels so bad. I understand that on the flip side, you've been downed, and then you can use your D-warp to get away. It's really odd. I've never seen that in another game. It's forgiving and all of that. It's just really cheesy somehow. I just don't like it. It's odd. Yeah, you never see that anywhere else. It's like you either win the fight or you don't win the fight, and like winning the fight after the fact because you dropped your turret and then killed the guy because he had a tiny bit of health left, or you grenaded him, just feels kind of cheap. I don't think that's something that a new player comes into and thinks, oh hell yeah, great feature.
I have a question and a selfish request. So the question is about the UI, the current UI. It majorly stands in 2 points. The first one is the claustrophobic UI for loadouts. Are we going to see a change on that? And the in-game health bar UI, which is really annoying sometimes for long-range fights.
So I don't know what you mean with the second part, but I can address the first part, which is that, like I said, we had an enormous push as a team to get Station out with the reworked UI. We had pretty grand plans of how to make it easier and more streamlined for you guys to equip stuff and mod them. We didn't manage to finish it on time. But we're working on it right now. Yes, and that includes making the weapon cards much smaller, so you'll be able to have overview similar as you had before, but with a streamlined UI where you can really quickly go into a modding screen, quickly switch a weapon in a slot without additional clicks, and without having to scroll and missing the overview. We're on it.
When will invisibility actually make you invisible? We were talking about that recently. I think what we have right now is a little bit silly, and we should probably tune that visual effect. But somebody wanted to ask a question, I believe.
But there was a second part of the question as well.
The second part of the UI was about the health bars. On mobs, imagine if a player is running and there are mobs aggroing him. The mob health bars stay on top of their heads, and they are not transparent, or they don't have any kind of option to add that transparency. So it kind of blocks the vision on long range fights, and it's really annoying. This might be just a feeling that I have, but I've seen other people talk about it, so that's why I'm trying to voice it.
So I didn't understand.
I think if I will paraphrase, let me know if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is, imagine, for example, me and Rickdekard are fighting long distance, and then a mob comes along, and the health bar of the mob is blocking my view of Rickdekard. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Got it.
Because we made snipers viable. Now we have these first world problems.
I haven't thought about it myself, but I think I just will playing more because it sounds like it could be annoying when you say it. Maybe so. I mean, we do have some systems that are supposed to be a bit smart with when we show health bars and whatnot.
Yeah, I want to add an internal prototype that we tried today, actually, internal playtest that I've been asking for quite a while. That we have outline around the player that you've been damaging, like a very thin outline. But if you damage someone, then and they're in the open air, and you have a straight field of vision to them, then they will have a red outline, short red outline for just a few seconds, and that should be able to help you distinguish your target a little bit better, and that should also help your teammates see who you're shooting.
So
Now I know we will keep an eye on the bounce of this one so it doesn't become too much. So trust us on this one.
Jingle
It's
Pun is
just
like,
enough.
no!
Just enough. And like I said, it's not going to go through Geo. If you're behind a rock, no one can see it anymore.
Yeah,
So
it's very subtle.
I was gonna point that out because in the past, when we had the old bounty system,
Yeah.
where a player would gather a bounty, the outlines tended to show behind rocks and walls, and it
Yeah.
was so easy to just
It won't.
select a target. One question about, like, as you said, you made the snipers viable this patch, and one issue I think most of the community can agree is that any scope over a 4x is pointless right now. The render distance is between 150 and 160 meters. I don't know exactly which number it is. And
What
are
distance,
there
sorry?
plans to either removing those massive scopes or extending the render distance to a point where you actually can sit down 200, 250 meters away from your enemies and hard scope?
I think render distance is a lot more than 150 meters. Just want to.
No, it isn't.
Well, for mobs, not just environment render, but the mob rendering and people rendering doesn't tend to go out farther than 150.
Yes, it doesn't go further than 150. I have seen players disappear on my screen at 160.
So that sounds oddly short.
165.
That sounds oddly short.
What settings are you playing on? Are you playing on low settings?
I do play on low
So
settings.
that's why. That's why.
Then maybe
Are you
that's
sure?
something weird where we have or what were you saying, that it doesn't change rendering of players?
Yeah, so settings don't change when you render in the AI or players.
I was just gonna say I hope it doesn't, because that would be very weird.
Okay. Yeah, we need to look into that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was having fun shooting people with a K from what I felt like was really, really far away, but maybe that was 150 meters.
Yeah, we should look into that, because that sounds odd.
If you turn
I
up
mean-
the rendering distance, get ready for Basilisk meta.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the issues. Basilisk playing hit scan. If you can basically see people from 250 meters, people is gonna run it and just snipe you from so far away
Yeah.
that you can fire back.
Yeah. I mean, of course,
And-
if we do touch stuff like player render, or it's not really render distance, I think it's actually basically we call out people for network reasons
But that-
based on
But
this.
what
But
most games do is that when you're looking for a scope, it's different.
yeah. So this way, so there's, and of course we'd have to be very careful with it. If we do change such values, indeed, like Basilisk, we have to keep a very close eye on.
The only thought I had on how to circumvent this issue of Basilisk being massively strong from insane distances is giving it a fall of damage after those 150 meters, so you can't abuse it. You can still hit and deal a decent damage, but
Exactly. Yeah.
you can't abuse.
Yeah. So there's ways to address it, and we have to think of it. I also just wanted one thing, because someone asked whether the UX or the user flow of mods and stuff, if that includes skins. Yes, it does. So we had a review today of the new mock-ups of the menus, and yes, you will have a better overview of weapon skins and charms and all of that stuff as well. What else? Did we have one question? We cannot know how many players we killed during the match. Well, you can know how many players you kill in the match by counting how much kill contract score you got, but we will look into things like, end of match call-outs and things like that as well, and statistics. So that is coming as well. And will your cryptocurrency in-game ever be useful? Yes. That's definitely our ambition, that even the most experienced prospectors have things to spend their crypto marks on. And that's something we're looking into this phase as well.
ARM version.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, so 101, absolutely, that's exactly what I mean, like proper stats for end of match. Like, I think basically any player in the end of match should feel like they did something really well, and we need to call that out. Whether
Why
it's
is there a K mark cap?
Why? So the cap is really, really high, just to be clear. And we've had a bug where it seems in end of match like there is a cap that is really low and a daily cap, but there isn't. So let's be really clear about that. So the cap is really 1 million crypto marks, which is more than you would ever want to spend. And the reason is simply that we saw it with our crafting materials, that we wanted more ways for people to spend them on in the future, but we didn't get there fast enough. And then people had so many that we would never be able to counter it, essentially.
But it's nice to have 1 million. It's a nice number to make.
It's a nice number, yeah.
I have a question to the community that I would love to hear. What things would you like to do in the station between the matches?
Parkour.
Please never remove the parkour. It's actually fun.
Yeah.
No plans to remove it. We're gonna make it cool.
Yeah, I think we have plans to make even more parkour, right?
Yeah,
That's basically.
No plans to remove it.
Safe and sound.
Because at this point, our parkour is just glitching out of the map.
So exactly. So
And
the parkour, not remove it.
I'm totally okay with that. Like, I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no problem.
There's a big risk in doing it because you can fall through space, and the only solution to that is just restarting your game. So maybe like an unstuck button to put you back into spawning station.
There was a plan to have a trigger volume, so if you fall too far, you get automatically teleported back to the station.
One question about like a bug that is happening right now, just because something I heard the community ask about a lot is when you're using automatic weapons, they tend to stop out of nowhere. Is there I know it's probably a really hard bug to track and find the source, and that's what I wanted to ask, if the reasoning behind not fixing it is because the source hasn't been found.
It just hasn't been found. It's probably latency based, I would imagine.
I mean,
but
we have a couple of those spikes that are about player states. I saw some check-ins today that related to them. It's always this hard thing when we don't know exactly how to reproduce them. We can't be 100% sure that we fixed them yet. But I saw some check-ins today that will go live with 16.2.
So that's Thursday next week.
Yeah. So usually when we do something like that, we remove like one edge case where something like that happens. And there might be might be 1 or 2 remaining. But I think it might be more robust already in 16.2.
Oh, cool! We have a sync. Look at the last message. You can buy the energy turret as many times as you want.
Well, perfect. There we go.
Oh, so about choosing the map you want to play in so you can do your solo mission. So what we're looking at doing is, if you have a map 1 solo mission active, then when you go and matchmake, you'll get a map 1 match. And the same for map 2. The other approach is to allow you to select map 1 and map 2 missions. We might do both, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it's an issue that we are aware of and we really want to solve.
Oh, Big M Gaming, I really enjoyed watching you on... it wasn't the PCL tournament because you weren't... I think Rumble was doing that instead, but on the Friday before that, you did awesome casting. Good job. Good job, Big M Gaming. You were fantastic. But we'll try to fix that bug, Big M Gaming. Kelmar, we have to see about kit usage.
Are there any more questions in our in Discord?
More of a comment because I gotta go. I just wanted to thank you guys for inviting me and also moving this to a Friday, so I was able to attend this one.
Thanks
You're-
for attending. That's just
You're very
great for us.
welcome. You're very welcome. So, look, we work in sprints, which are 3 weeks long, and sprints are just I don't know, some development term for a duration of time, that time box where we work to make the release. And I think what would be lovely is that if it's not too often, that a week or so after the release that we do this, and that we get your feedback on the release, so you can help us make the next release better.
Yep.
When are we getting official cycle merch? So I went to Gamescom last year and I met this guy from Ukraine, and he has a company where they make a whole bunch of stuff for League of Legends, like plush toys and stuff. And I have his business card, and I need to find it and reach out to him because I think we need to make some merch. I'm totally down with that.
As a dev, I also
would
happen to have some cool cycle
throw 'em.
T-shirts that that may or may not be up on eBay. No.
I don't know. But anyway, if you could do this every 3 weeks or so, or maybe every second release, whatever makes sense, then it'd be great, because I learned something today that snipers are good for 150 meters and then they're garbage because you can't see anyone. Yeah, I think we're gonna learn plenty from doing this Q&A more often. It will help us make the game better.
Yep.
And I hope that in return we can also give you context on the decisions we make, but not only that, that we can share where we plan to take the game and be honest about that, even when we're unsure, and that you can give us your point of view, because we don't have a monopoly on wisdom, and working
Yep.
with you guys, I think we'll get there.
Yep. So it's a journey to make this game a mega smash hit, and I just want to invite everyone here to join us on it.
Yeah. Awesome. Then I guess we wrap it up.
I get the final word.
Yeah. Final word. Go for it.
It is the selfish request. When do we get solo rank?
I think
Just one day. One day.
Yeah,
or
no.
two.
I also like solo
Yeah.
rank, but the problem is that we just need to have enough players on at once so that we can put the least popular game mode live, which currently is solo ranked. But I know it's really, really popular with some people. I mean, I'm not good at the game, but if there's one ranked mode I would like to play, it's solo ranked. So you have an advocate here. Anyway, that sounds weird, but
Yeah, an evangelist. perhaps,
evangelist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Advocate is a weapon. No.
Yeah. Right. A Swede is explaining English to me. That's
Yeah.
great. As a native speaker. Welcome to my life here at Jaeger. We just need to hit enough users so we can turn it on. So, I think we're going to have a very big release with release 17. I hope that we're going to be able to put an Asian server live and have a whole bunch of players play the game that couldn't play it before. And if that goes well, then I think solo ranked might become a thing.
And I think I would like to see how it performs again, actually, because I think for me, I'm also in any like competitive games I play, I'm also a solo ranked player. I didn't like it in our game because of the one life thing. So for me, the recall battery, although we're not done with this feature by any means, changes the mode completely, and I think it might be a more viable mode for us to have live now. But we should find out. As with anything, we put it live, see how well received it is, and go from there.
Yeah. And PAX is not enabled in solo ranks. Yeah.
That's correct.
Oh my god, I don't know if PAX should be enabled at all. It's a big discussion here for a long time. I think we trick our new players into thinking that they'll get a teammate and then they get shot with really low health because they have no shield.
And they wonder why they die so quickly.
And they wonder why they die and all of that stuff. So I think removing Pact is something that we might have to consider.
Yeah. But I think it's a good idea here in chat to enable ranked solo for the weekend perhaps, and just see what happens and take it from there.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty reasonable. Does that satisfy your personal selfish request final words?
Yeah, it kind of does.
Kind of, yeah. Okay. One step at a time. We'll get
we
there.
were very non-committal. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. We used NPC. Can't you just ignore a pack request? You can, but new players are taught to accept them.
Yeah.
And then they get killed. Cool. Guys and girls, let's do this.
More often.
Yeah, let's do this in 3 weeks or so after, maybe not 3 weeks from now, but a week after release 17 has gone live, which would be somewhere around Gamescom time. So 20th of or so, around that kind of time of August. And it's really helpful for us, and on a personal note, is fun. So
yeah,
I'd like to do it again with you.
Yeah, and like I said, we need you guys to to take this game to where it can be.
Yeah.
And feel free to reach out to us also in the meantime. Like, I'm very active on Discord, for example, and like you say, on Rumble is as well. And a couple of all the different moderators in the Cycle Discord. So just be active and reach out to us, and we listen.
Absolutely.
We always hear you. We might not always be able to act super timely as what you guys would have wished, but we always listen.
And next time we might be in our new streaming room with a sofa, a long table. Oh my god, you're going to have to tune in to see how flaky that fake leather sofa is.
Yeah.
Guys, have a great one, guys and girls. See you soon. Chat to you in Discord. All the best. Have a great weekend.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being here. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
You too.